Fairly Oddparents: A New Wish was a surprise hit that a lot of people enjoyed, me included. It did enough to stand out on its own while still paying homage and respect to the original show, and thank God for that because they've been swinging and missing with these reboots for a while now. I could do a review if y'all want me to, but I want to look ahead to season 2 and talk about the things I want to see in it, a wish list if you will. But let's not beat around the bush and let's jump into the things I want to see in season 2 of A New Wish. After I remind you all to like and subscribe if you end up enjoying the video, we'll be making more content like this pretty consistently, so be sure to stick around for that. Okay, so I'm almost certainly not the only one, but the biggest thing I'm looking forward to is seeing what other original characters will make their return in the second season. Of course, I feel like the obvious one people want to see are Timmy and Chester. Timmy is Timmy and everyone wants to see what happened to him later in life, and even more so, we want to see Timmy interact with Cosmo and Wanda again. It's a proven dynamic and it will be fun to see if anything has changed with it. I also want to see how Perry feels about Timmy. That was basically his brother if you think about it. It would also be cool to see Timmy imparting some wisdom onto Hazel. Sure, he wasn't the best god kid, but you can't argue that he wasn't a prolific one. He was straight up a celebrity in Fairy World a couple of times, so I know he would have some tips and tricks for Hazel if he somehow still has his memory. It's not like we've seen him lose Cosmo and Wanda, so who knows what could have happened. Moving on, Chester's a pretty obvious want for season 2 for me, especially since AJ has already shown up. Personally, I always liked Chester more than AJ of that friend group because he always felt like the heart of the three, endlessly kind, sometimes, and simply a good friend. Even though he wasn't the smartest, maybe just as dumb as Timmy, I feel like the sky's the limit for him. There's a lot of things I could see him doing. Maybe somehow he became a baseball player or went hard into the journalist route. Maybe he's doing some humanitarian work at that time he had Norm as a fairy is to be believed. I'm honestly just as curious to see where he ends up as I'm curious to see where Timmy ends up. But of the two, I do feel like Chester is more of a lock to show up because, like I said, if AJ is here, there's no way Chester doesn't show up sooner or later. Those are the obvious ones, but there are a couple more characters that I would love to see return in season 2. Of course, I would love to see just about everyone return, but I'll be realistic. Plus, I want the show to stand on its own rather than simply being nostalgia bait. Seeing the old characters again is always fun, but it shouldn't be at the expense of the new characters. So who do I want to see come back? Unfortunately, a character that would have been fun to see come back but can't is Norm the Genie. Rest in peace, Norm Macdonald. Though I do still think having some genie as a possible villain could be fun considering how they are. Though unlike Timmy, I can't see why Hazel would use a genie. Maybe Jasmine or Wen? Maybe even Dev? Though, now that I think about it, Ireb basically fit that role considering just how powerful he was. Okay, so first up, I would love to see Mark Chang and Tootie back. Vicky already came back and these were the closest people to her, one being madly in love with her and the other being her sister. I could see Mark showing up in an episode where Hazel tries to get rid of Vicky, kind of like what Timmy did way back when. It's an easy way to reintroduce him and I can't see why he wouldn't still be in love with her. She's just as evil as ever after all. And I could see Tootie still obsessing over Timmy even though she's hit the big 3-0, and honestly it's probably only gotten worse, so it would be fun to see Timmy getting the main cast help in dealing with her. Though I guess in that case she wouldn't show up until Timmy does. But speaking of Vicky, seeing as she's still basically a supervillain, I think we should bring back a superhero. That's right, good old Crimson Chin. He was a fun character and there's still a lot of mileage to be gained with him. Hazel and Anthony interacting with Crimson Chin could be fun because I feel like Anthony would be more of a fanboy than Hazel, so I would love to see how that plays out. Plus, we saw a poster of him in the Vicky episode, so it's not like my hope is unfounded. In the same vein as Timmy, Remy Buxaplenty showing up would be fun, especially if he helps Dev with his current problems. Remy's issues are pretty similar to what Dev is going through, and some advice might be what Dev needs, especially after the battle for the Big Wong where he lost Perry. Past that, I would love to see either Mama Cosmo, Wanda's dad, or Wanda's sister. I don't need all of them, and I know we saw Mama Cosmo already, but it would be cool to have an episode involving one of them, mostly because I'm morbidly curious about how they would react to Wanda in A New Wish. Cosmo's mostly the same, but Wanda is pretty different from the OG show. She's a lot more chill and willing to go along with the crazy shenanigans nowadays, and it would be funny to see how she handles her family now. I feel like she will be more unbothered by them and generally more Cosmo-like, which might surprise them. Who knows, that might even cause more issues than they realize. For a deep cut pick in my wish list, I would love to see Mr. Bickles make a return. If you don't remember him, he was the drama teacher. I could see him coming back to the school and trying to teach the new generation of kids some theatrics. He was always a funny character to me, so I think he would fit right in. And now it's time for my unpopular choices. I want to see Chloe and Sparky. There, I said it. At the end of the day, they were main characters, and rather than trying to forget them forever, I want to see if the writers can salvage their characters and make them more appreciated by the fans. I don't know, I think they can do it, I believe. Speaking of characters being more appreciated, I'm looking forward to the development of some of the characters, specifically Hazel and Dev Dimmadome. Not to say that those characters aren't liked or anything, but you know what I mean. In older cartoons, the characters weren't allowed to develop as much by executives due to syndication reasons. You don't want two random episodes to play back to back, but the character is wildly different. It'll confuse the kids or something. Characters like Timmy or Blue always seem to learn a lesson at the end of the episode, only to go back to their old ways in the next one. Even big life-changing things like the Wishology saga is enough to make a notable change to Timmy's personality. Specifically for Blue, the creator of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, Craig McCracken, has gone on record saying that he wanted to have Blue develop and become more mature as the show went on, but the exec said no. But that's the past and we're in the now. There are so many cartoon shows nowadays that have meaningful character development in their characters, and it adds so much depth to the show. Hazel throughout the first season has problems with anxiety and overthinking, which caused her to jump to conclusions and make wishes that would get out of hand. With the new season, it would be cool to see her take steps to get it under control however she sees fit. I feel like her friends and brother knowing about fairies would take a load off her mind because she's not alone in her situation anymore, and I hope the show leans into that. As for Dev, he's gotta have his redemption tour. He hit his breaking point with his insecurities and issues with his dad and became a big villain by the end of the season, but at the very end of the battle for the big wand, he learned how wrong the things he was doing were and seemed to make steps towards being a better person. Of course, he then gets his memory wiped by Jorgen, so who knows what he forgot. But what if his memories didn't get wiped? What if they're still in there deep down? And I mean, Hazel's rule-free wish was that her friends and brother kept their memories, and Hazel seems like she still considers Dev a friend despite all the stuff that went down. And don't get me wrong, he definitely shouldn't have fairies again after the taking over Fairy World fiasco and the whole him wishing Cosmo and Wanda dead thing, but if he knows about fairies, it would be cool to see him become a better friend to Perry and a better person overall. And maybe he can get over his daddy issues too while we're at it. I'm certain the show isn't done with Dev, so let's hope for the best. Speaking of Dev and Perry, I'm really curious about what's next for Perry. Like I said, he shouldn't be Dev's godparent anymore, so I feel like he has to get a new god kid. And if so, I wonder if it'll be a new character or someone we already know. It's not his fault necessarily that Dev did the things that he did, he was just following the rules, but it has to be a huge learning experience for him. Maybe it's what makes him realize that he needs more advice from his parents and tries to learn more from them. Especially now that there are more people that know about fairies, it will be a good time to get some practice in. Plus, I like when he interacts with Cosmo and Wanda, so I hope he sticks around more. And on that note of interactions, one of my biggest hopes is that they really lean into the fact that Jasmine, Wynn, and Anthony know about fairies now. This is essentially uncharted territory, and it was easily one of my favorite decisions from last season. It should have happened with Chester and AJ, but I'll take it here. This opens up the possibilities of things that can happen now that there are so many people essentially sharing the same fairies. I'm so curious of how it'll play out, and I hope that this allows for the writers to mess with the dynamics of the characters a bit. Like, how would Anthony mesh with Cosmo and Wanda since he's honestly the oldest person who knows about fairies, minus Crocker, because he doesn't count, he's just a crockpot. And you know what, that crockpot needs to get a larger villain role in the next season. He's easily one of the biggest threats to fairy world through and through, and he's still obsessed with proving the existence of fairies, so it will make sense for him to cook up more schemes, especially now that he realizes that there are fairies lurking around the corner. You don't make a fairy de-atomizer and set up a huge butterfly net in your employer's building and not have more plants cooking. He's really smart, so who knows what he'll think of next, and he has had way more years in the tank to let his obsession fester. He could somehow become worse than he was in the original show. Also, I want more AJ in season 2 and not just in the background like he was in the season finale. He and Hazel's dad are getting along well, so it'll be fun to have some episodes where they get up to some sci-fi shenanigans. So there you have it, most of the things I hope for in season 2 of A New Wish. Of course, there are some more things I want to see, like seeing more anti-fairies and exploring the podcast Whisper was running, but those thoughts kind of just start and stop there. What things are you hoping to see in season 2 of A New Wish? Let me know in the comments, I do read them all even if I don't respond to it. And again, be sure to like and subscribe because it helps immensely. There's also our Patreon where you can see videos like this early and also vote in our next video. There'll also be a mini podcast one of these days exclusive to the Patreon where we talk more off the cuff about the cartoons we love, so if any of that interests you or you just want to support us, the link is in the description. And a big thank you to the ones that are already subscribed. But before you go searching for the existence of fairies, have a good day.